Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Run It Back, episode number 28. I like to start every episode the same, so I will start the same. First of all, I am Menelik Fernandez. I'm your host, and I always like to start by giving thanks to, first of all, the Rising Coaches Network for connecting me with other coaches who want to share the game, learn, get better, who are trending on the upward trajectory or trending on the downward trajectory in life. It doesn't really matter because we're all in this together at some sort of element, and whatever you're willing to share helps all of us get better. So huge thanks to that network for putting us together, for helping me get to know people who are willing to share the game. I can't say thank you enough. And I said it last week, but also a huge thank you to the coaches that all take their time out to jump on these calls, and even if it's just to listen, sometimes to share. Again, I appreciate the time that you guys spend with us. The premise of the show remains the same. We take teams that have played previously, excuse me, and we run it back, so to speak. We take a look at what worked, we take a look at what didn't work, what we would do differently, how the scout impacted the game, all that fun stuff. So today in episode number 28, we're talking about Peninsula versus Treasure Valley. This game happened almost a full year ago now. This was December 21st, 2019. We're taking a look at it from Peninsula's perspective, and we're very fortunate to have assistant coach Matt Mayberg join us from Peninsula College. And, just briefly, Matt spent 3 years as a GA at Seattle U, where he completed his master's and is now entering his second year at Peninsula as an assistant. And just as a side note, Matt and I, we spent some time in a group where we're trying to learn and get better from each other. And from my perspective, just an awesome guy who's always got the time to listen and share key insights. So, tremendous amount of respect from me. So Matt, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. That's a glowing review. I appreciate all the work that you did to put that group together over the summer. It definitely, kind of helped me save my sanity and help give some purpose
Yeah.
and learn and grow through what was just a super slow time. So awesome to get to know you and all the guys in that group as well.
Appreciate you, sir. All right, so let's get into the nuts and the bolts of it. Let's talk about this game. I always like to start with preparation. So if you could, with this particular game, you played the night before. So when do you start the scout? What are you putting in on it? And sort of like, how many games out are you watching? What are you looking for? What actually goes into the paper copy? All that fun stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So, at the junior college level and kind of a regional JUCO, it's a little bit of a different approach from in the non-conference versus our regular conference. So, for example, right, our conference schedule is a little more traditional, Wednesday, Saturday. So you get, 3 days to prepare. You start kind of have a little more regimented. The non-conference is almost entirely tournaments. So back to back, or in most cases, back to back to back. So it's a lot. And what I thought was pretty unique and very different from Seattle U and the Division I level. Well, I guess now is with all these tournaments and with COVID and kind of changing the landscape, and now how conference is going to be back to back for most people to kind of limit that travel. It was kind of a unique experience to be like, okay, we have a week to plan for 3 teams. So we would ascend on a tournament like this at the Grace Harbor crossover tournament. We would start our scouts on a Sunday, so the Sunday before officially. I had at the beginning of the year I had kind of databased everybody's schedule, so I knew who was playing when they were playing, and I had it in a big Excel sheet. And for the most part, we would just unless they had um, unless they had a common opponent, somebody that we had played and knew really well already, we really just focused on the last 3 games or maybe 4, depending on the time. So, and again, it's really, really hard. It was really, really hard to do. This being my first year doing 3 scouts in a week.
Right.
and having them roll back to back to back. And, you know, as someone that likes to really control and know everything and be over prepared, it was really, really stressful the first, you know, 2 or 3 tournaments. But, you know, a lot of it is just as even more of a focus on our own team, or especially earlier in the season, focusing on our own team more so than the other one.
So let's talk about what actually goes in the report for you.
Yeah.
And who do you deliver it to? So I mean, in terms of preparation, you definitely see a lot of different styles from the different people that I've got to spend some time with. But you know, some coaches are like, this stuff is only for us. Some coaches are like, I'll share everything with everybody. How do you guys approach it where you are? Is it different than what it was like at Seattle U? And you know, like, how do you deliver it? I understand you actually have a version of your paper copy that you're willing to share type deal. So, you know,
Yeah.
maybe if you jump in on that, whatever.
Yeah, I can pull that up in a second, but just kind of it was a big adjustment again. Seattle U, I worked for Jim Hayford, and he is very much super detail oriented,
Right.
very, you know, and the coaches scout were sometimes 10 pages, you know, 12 pages long. Personnel, you know, what their actions look like within, you know, a fast draw type of things.
Mhm.
And for us, our scouts never go over a page. So it's always in a word, and it's always in a Word document to say, you know, on a JUCO budget to kind of save us that funding. And the biggest thing that kind of the main point of what we do in the paper scout, the very least, is just personnel and just kind of a brief description. So I'll pull that up right now. Um,
You should be good to share.
yep. Yeah. So can everybody see that?
Yeah, you're good, sir.
Great. So this was the paper scout for us, and again, it was just really, you know, the one of the big terms that my head coach Donald Rollman really emphasizes is he wants to focus on, you know, he wants to less is more, and a lot of times, and especially at our level with freshmen and sophomores, he wants to avoid the paralysis by analysis.
Right.
So we play, like, for example, we played Clackamas Community College twice in the preseason previous to this. They were the only team that beat us in the non-conference. So they absolutely smoked us the first game. Like, they beat us by 30, just absolutely ran us out of the gym. And in my mind, we had them. So 2 weeks later, we had them coming back up to our place for a tournament. So in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to go super in depth. I'm going to know everything about them. I'm going to do, you know, try and give out the same scout that we gave at Seattle U. And that thing, just what would have been like our player personnel and kind of their identity,
Mhm.
was like 3.5 pages. And I gave that to the head coach, and he just looked at me. He's like, "What are we doing here?"
Right.
So, um, you know, for us, less is more. And, you know, we adjust, and we need to know who people are and know what they do. But the idea, so normally in the non-conference, how it works, 3 days before the game, or yeah, 3 days before the game, we show personnel clips and give this out. 2 days before, we start going over their actions, and the day before, we just kind of review the day before and the day of, we review everything. So we go through, you know, walk through the actions, do some live reps in shell with their actions, things like that. But still kind of understand, you know, continue for 3 days, continually quiz the guys, who they're guarding, what they do, what they like to do, a go-to move maybe. Um, and then the biggest thing from a coaching perspective that, you know, we really like to identify is what their identity is, what they do really well. And for us, it's as we scout and prepare, it's how do we not want to get beat? So what do they want to do? How do they want to beat us? And how do we take that away? So as you know, on the paper scout, again, pretty simple, 1 to 2, maybe 1, 2, 3 sentences, maybe for the starters. Again, we want to, and we keep a lot of the same terminology: shooter, 50-50 guy is a guy that is just as dangerous of a shooter as he is as a slasher.
Right.
Stretch 5, a lot of the same kind of terminology throughout our scouts. And again, we don't want to disparage anybody either. Instead of saying, oh, he can't shoot, or, we say, what does he do well? He's a slasher. Right. So, and then right here at the bottom, again, kind of overall team trends. And, this is taken from just their stats at the time, synergy, anything we notice as we as a staff watch film, kind of things like that.
So I got a couple questions about this. One of the first things I notice is, first of all, you're covering 7 of the guys.
Yep.
So obviously less is more, but you don't put in your matchups. And then when you're talking about the way that you deliver it over the days, as you were saying, you did mention, obviously you get into film with the guys. Is it you're watching film of everything that they do as a team for all of your guys? Or are you pulling specific clips on specific players and then showing those clips only to the guys who would be covering those particular players?
No, so we that's a great question. So we show the personnel clips to everybody. And so if they have a great player like Zach Phillips, for example, who, as I'm sure as you saw, made some incredible shots in this game. And if we would have followed the personnel a little closer, maybe try and limited that. But with someone like Zach, he would get 7, 8 clips, maybe 9, to kind of just show the team what he can do. Because just because we want to start with, say, Jalen Reed on Zach or Davian Harris-Williams, you never know if someone gets in foul trouble, or if that matchup's not working, or right. So we want everybody, whether it's if the big needs to know, okay, like, if he's if I'm hard hedging to make sure that he can't get to the middle, we need to show the big why they're hard hedging. So it's really important for everybody to know who we're playing, not just the individual matchup. We might, on the bus, I might pull up, I have all their personnel clips. I might pull it up on my iPad or on my computer and show it to them before the game if they really want to. But again, that's something that is really just kind of player by player basis for us as well.
Awesome. So that being said, in terms of the scout, you said that, a lot of the focus was going to be in this matchup of doing the kinds of things that you guys do and doing them well, and worrying a little bit less about the other team. Can you talk a little bit about things like your screen coverages or specific actions you wanted to take away in this game?
Right.
Like, going from general to specific, what did you actually identify? Hey, they're pretty good at X or pretty good at Y. So what are we doing for X and Y type deal?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, my dog's trying to break the door down over there. I don't know if you can hear that.
We've got lots of special guests throughout the time of running back.
But so yeah, with our ball screen coverage, generally, we didn't quite get into some kind of extreme. We do a lot of different things. We would kind of anything you can imagine, we tried, and we had variable success, whether it's trap, under, over, ice, hard hedge, soft hedge, right? We would switch it up. So, because again, we from a scouting perspective, when we saw if there was a team that just wanted to hard hedge or just go under, over, we could kind of personally adjust for it. So we wanted to be flexible, be versatile. So, and again, we played Lynn Benton the night before, who I think shot 26% from the 3-point line going into the game. So that dictates how we, obviously the stats and what we saw dictates that we probably would go, other than one or two guys, under ball screens, or, not necessarily be as aggressive with Treasure Valley, who shot it at a really high clip, 37%, had to be, know our personnel, make sure guys like Williams and Phillips weren't getting easy, step in threes off of ball screens, or making sure White, who is a phenomenal stretch five, and I'm almost positive was a Division II transfer, just wasn't able to get going. And so that obviously the personnel dictates our kind of ball screen coverage a lot. So our head coach will decide that kind of either in a tournament setting the night before, or that night, the night coming into it. And then in terms of their sets and stuff, so we would usually go 3, 4, 5 sets maybe. In conference, probably just their top 3 in a tournament style. So for example, you can see in the first play, they run kind of a screener action where they set a down screen for Zach, and where we covered that in our walkthrough. They run something that we ran at Seattle U called Red, which is just a ISO post with a stagger on the backside kind of continuously. So we saw that as well. So I thought we did a really good job in this game in particular, kind of highlighting what they did right out of the gate and making them go deep into the shot clock there. But we really want to, again, we don't need to walk through 8, 9 sets. We want to take it, and it depends on what their identity is. They were, this team in particular was so good at catching and shooting with off-ball action. It was really important that, we emphasize those 2 particular sets, or those 2 concepts of guarding the down screen and guarding staggers, making them curl it and having help in the middle. But again, someone who likes to run and press, we probably would spend more time there and maybe go over 1 or 2 sets. Just depends on how other teams want to try and beat us and what they're comfortable doing.
So I got a question for you, because excuse me, I don't know what's going on with my voice this morning. I'm kind of similar in terms of my coaching philosophy, at least in what I'm interpreting what you're saying, in terms of I like the jack of all trades, master of none philosophy. Like I don't have the philosophy of being like, I only hard hedge, or I only play a staggered screen this way. I like to vary it based upon opponents as well. I spend a tremendous amount of time teaching in preseason and early season, those kinds of things. Do you find that when you're playing 3 games in a week or 2 games back to back, such as this, do you find that you have difficulty with certain players being able to adjust from one night to the next? And do you find that there are certain teaching points that like help bring those things out? I know we're getting away from the script a little bit there, but it just kind of intrigues me, because it's something that, I do as well. So I'm curious what your viewpoint is on it.
Yeah. So if maybe clarify again if I don't get it right with this answer, what you're looking for. But I think we do have really firm kind of defensive principles and concepts, that I think they carry over game to game. But that's what's really I think that's where the walkthrough is so important in the morning, and having a routine. And when we get to the tournament and we wake up, breakfast, go to the gym, for shoot around, and our shoot around is so important. Excuse me. So, and that's kind of, the night before after our, we'll finish our game, we'll go to dinner. Coach and I will be in the business center chopping up film and kind of talking about it. And it's always kind of the first couple of times it felt a little goofy, usually being in this little cramped office, just me and the head coach, or and the, volunteer assistant if he made it out. But, that's that dialogue with myself and the coach, and our relationship got really, really good towards the, as we continued. And, that at once, once we rep so many things out in practice and we spend so much time defensively that, I think as long as we had good focus and a good routine and we could really lock in at shoot around, there's always game slippage, especially in tournaments. There's more and more as you play, but it's just trying to be as solid as you can and really hammer in, those 5, we have 6 keys each and every game and really hammering in those keys.
Well, I think first of all, you absolutely nailed the response to my question in terms of, how that works and how you teach all that kind of stuff. But I also, there's a couple gentlemen on this call that we've had the conversation recently, just talking about the real value of being at a smaller program where you as a coach get the reps to, do all of these scouts, sit in close with the head coach, get real experience in terms of that. Going along that same line, as a coach who's finding his digs in his first year, so to speak, last year, talk about in-game management and see if you can talk about like specific to this game, if you don't mind, where it's like, what if any adjustments do you see from the other team during it? And, how well did your scout adapt to the game? And were there things that you were like, hey coach, we've got to change? And like, maybe even talk a little bit about the freedom that your head coach gives you in terms of how much you can adjust, or, what the process is for making adjustments.
Yeah. Let's start with some of the adjustments they made. The biggest adjustment, and where we I wouldn't say missed on our scout, but they were something like 95, upper 90s% man-to-man. According to Synergy, according to their film,
Right.
really, no press. And
Matt, I've actually got a clip in my video where I'm like, what are they playing here? Like, that's actually,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I'm like, what is going on? Like,
right. And it's not, there's another team in our division that plays that kind of like, what the hell zone are you doing? Right. So, but that was something that, again, I don't think we were necessarily prepared. I don't know. I don't want to say we weren't prepared, but they just hadn't shown much zone. And, as we followed our scout pretty well. We kind of did what we wanted to do offensively from a man-to-man standpoint, getting into the paint, creating, hitting the big, playing it, pushing the tempo when we had it. That's somewhere we definitely felt we had an advantage at times, but playing in the half court is, playing at our pace is essentially. When they switched to zone, from an execution standpoint, we really, really struggled. And thank goodness for Davian Harris Williams being the number 7 catch and shoot player in all of junior college last year, because
he hit some massive shots in this game.
Yeah, he had a heat check going for sure. So, and that's where, speak again, we'll have a almost completely different team this year. So I feel okay saying this is, we really struggled in zone and against the zone, and Davian really hit a lot, skewed the numbers, by hitting tough out of rhythm shots that you're saying like, okay, like of a quality of shot, not great, but he just made shots. So,
right.
That was the biggest adjustment that I saw. And again, from what Coach Roman lets me do, and our dialogue is incredible. And I'm incredibly lucky and thankful that, just in year one, the base offense we run is something that I learned from Coach Hayford at Seattle U, and he was open to putting that in right away. And that kind of changed our philosophy, of the program. We still run it this year, and kind of changed who we recruit and, what our program values in terms of, incoming players, what positions, we recruit from an offensive standpoint. So, and then I'm unbelievably lucky in that regard. And then the other on a in-game basis, I do a play call tracker. I sit on the
Right.
bench and I say, we ran, you know, hook, and number 3 shot the ball for a missed 3, and we got an offensive rebound and a foul. Right. So I track everything like that. And so at halftime or at a media, I'll be able to come in and say, hey, we've scored on strong 5 times, 5 of the 7 times we ran it. Let's keep going to it, see if they can stop it, see how they adjust, things like that. Yeah, I mean, he obviously, as the head coach, has total play call, but there'll be, I'm thankful that he definitely values my input. And if I say, hey, I think let's change it up or suggest it, he doesn't always listen to me, but
Right.
that's okay. And a lot of the time, I would say a lot of the times he does. And, if it doesn't work, sometimes I get a weird look,
What was
sideways
that?
look.
What are you doing, Mayberg? Come on.
Right. Fair enough. So,
Yeah. So another like a point I usually like to talk about during this show is at the half. So in this game, you guys are up 11 at the half. What did you notice from the first half going to the second half? What are you conveying to your head coach? And then what is the head coach conveying to your guys? How do you implement change if you need to make it? What are you saying to stay motivated? All that fun stuff.
yeah. So I mean, I think we played about as well from a scout standpoint and what we wanted to do. I'm just pulling up the numbers here. We didn't shoot the 3 ball well at the half, but from the number standpoint, but Jalen Reed in particular had a ton of great looks that just didn't go down. They're just
Right.
long, short, and kind of those freshman legs that get, as you get kind of into December and your legs start to go a little bit and starts to be a little more of a push than a shot. You start to see that with JR. But I mean, we thought that, we held them. So they shot 33% from the field, 25% from 3. So a couple tough shots, tough step backs, but really from a defensive standpoint, everything that they did for the most part, was kind of in our game plan. We wanted them to put the ball on the deck, shoot over length. They were crashing the glass a little bit harder, and we weren't boxing out, and they got chip shots that they kind of missed. But overall, we were getting to the paint. We were making the extra pass. We were kind of controlling the tempo the way that we were hoping to. And so the biggest thing that, if I remember right, I have notes. I take notes during all the medias and have them on a sheet that I print out at the end of the end of tournaments. I don't have the halftime notes on here for some reason, but if I remember correctly, the biggest thing for us was really just we need to be ready for the zone and be ready to try and get the ball inside of the zone and not settle for catching just perimeter shot type of stuff. And more that we were going to continue to win the game on the defensive side of the ball, making them put the ball on the deck, not letting them be comfortable. We definitely needed to keep them off the glass as well.
So just before I jump into video, this is usually my video segue. I'm curious about your end of game reports or after game reports.
Yeah.
My buddy, I don't know if you know him, he's on Rising Coaches as well, Enrico Kufor. He and I, for a little while, were exchanging games, just talking about stuff. Mm-hmm. And he started sending me his after game reports. And like for me, our box scores here in my league don't keep plus minus. So I'll go back and I'll do the plus minus after a game, and then I'll work out some advanced analytic stuff from that. And those things are important to me, but to just write down paragraphs of like what you thought of the game, I think helps a lot when you go back and revisit the game. And I had never really previously done it. And now I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to start doing that. So I'm curious, what do you put in yours? What do they look like?
Yeah. So there's a couple just more kind of deeper analytics. It's all the box score is always in there. And I don't think we do plus minus either, but that's not something that Coach Roman was particularly concerned with or put a lot of value in. And the biggest thing, so the thing that we did, one of the things we did at Seattle U, and this was kind of something that the post-game report was something that I kind of spearheaded and suggested. What we did was we would assign points to players. So there was the way we would track, a tangible, objective way to say how well did you play was a minutes per point chart. So, for example, I'll just pull it up and I'll show you.
Awesome. Let's see it.
Yeah, let's just do that. All right, so got a little cover here. So this is the assigned, you would go minutes, you take your minutes divided by the amount of points you let up in those minutes, and you get a score right here.
Right.
So the goal is to be above, we had, I think it was, at Seattle U was a 3.0. Our goal is 70, and again, the minutes were funky. The scorekeepers weren't, kind of messed up the minutes, and I didn't feel like going back and correcting it and timing it out.
Right.
So for what we had here, if you really did it for 200 minutes, the goal is about 2.7, which is what this score is. Our goal is to to keep teams under 74 points a game.
Okay.
So that 2.7, we say 3.0 for the guys, just so they're shooting above what we want. And again, it's never really perfect. Like Nate was first team all conference defensively for us, but he had the toughest assignment every night. So he may not have had, a great score night to night. He may not have a 4.0 or a 5.3 or whatever, but playing 23 minutes against the other team's best player and holding him to 12 is not his best night, but a lot of the times he was kind of in the mid twos, which is really good when you're guarding somebody that's 20 points a game.
Right.
Davian was checking Zach Phillips, who went ballistic as well. So again, just one of those things where, it's not always the true teller, but for somebody like Malik, who again is guarding an all conference big like Austin White, Division II, this shows that he worked his butt off and kind of tangibly is able to say, hey, you kept him from getting easy threes off. And then this shows, some of the value that we put on that defense.
So how subjective or how objective is this scale in your mind? The reason I ask that is, like you said, sometimes, first off, let me ask Kendall's question, right? So Kendall in the chat just said, basically, what exactly is this used for? And he's saying he might have missed the introduction. I think this basically was, we throw this in the post-game report, gives us an idea of how good of a game you had. Now, the reason that I ask what I ask is certain scorekeepers might not get things right, or, somebody might play fewer minutes, have a couple quick buckets, and it might skew it type deal. So, Definitely. How finite is the line to your coaching staff in terms of what you're looking at?
So it's not an end all be all, but it shows a guy. We had a couple players that would come in and be like, you know what, I did a pretty good job defensively. And we could say, well, you were in there for 10 minutes and you gave up 10 points.
Right.
That's not great. So, and that's something tangible that we have. And again, it's not our end all, like I said, it's not our end all be all from the defensive standpoint, but it's just something that as we track points allowed, we didn't start sharing these until conference started. So these were just something for coach to see. Someone but what is something that, like a trend like Gabe, right? Gabe didn't play very many minutes really through the whole year, but he had the highest minutes per point of the team. Right. And as we look back and we see what you see it as once you start compiling all those numbers together, you start to see you start to see a better picture. Like Gabe, right here, Gabe only played 7 minutes and didn't give up a bucket. And you can say, well, maybe he wasn't guarding a scorer, blah, 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 whatever you want to say. But if he does that for 10 games and he has 70 minutes and only gives up 4 points, 10, has some crazy high score, you start to think about it and you're like, okay, well, he's doing something right. And it's not just, okay, I'm guarding the ball, right? Or let's say I'm in help and it gets kicked out and my guy hits a 3. Those are my points. That's not how it works. It's kind of going back to what your question of objective, subjective. Yeah. I was the only one doing it, and I had the Coach Rollman and I went over what it meant that a point was assigned, right. And I stuck to that standard. And
as long as it's uniform, I
right, think exactly. That's something that I know. As I've talked a lot to Ben Sanders about scoring. Again with our offensive play calling. Something I really wanted to do is, grade out quality of possessions, because points per possession wasn't always indicative of how well we ran a play or,
right.
So, but again, and the biggest thing that he harped on, and that I think is, we did with this, is that we were super consistent throughout the year, and we would sometimes split a bucket. Like, if somebody got absolutely burned on the help or on the ball, but there was no help, like we would split that bucket up. Each player, the help player and the on-ball player, would get.
Very interesting.
So, right, because with our style of defense, our Texas Tech, South Carolina, we call midline help, deny the wing defense. The help can't get beat. We want to be super aggressive, a lot of ball pressure. So people are going to get beat on the ball from time to time, but the help can't get beat. So that's where, it wasn't always straight up, oh, you're guarding this guy and he scored. It's your points every time. So
I think Kendall had a question for you. Kendall, you still there?
Yeah. Matt, you kind of answered it in a way. I was kind of wondering about the criteria. We have something similar we kind of do.
Yeah.
And we call it a WOD, and it's just called on defense. But what I find myself struggling with is kind of the criteria. So, like, if we're icing a ball screen and the big, isn't in a driving lane, and so we have to help from the weak side, and they skip it across, and my man hits the 3. Like, who gets in your post game report here? How would you play that out?
Yeah, in that particular example, I think it's where does the play break down? Like, if you show that in film, where's the head coach going to say, all right, stop it here and teach, right? And say, right. In that example, it sounds like the big fella, if he's not clogging the middle, stopping that driving lane, that's what he's got to do. He didn't do his job. So, what did the help guy have to slide over? And was it the help guy's man that hit the shot? Yeah, absolutely. But the reason he had to overhelp and overcompensate is because he's covering for somebody else. So
you would assign to the original breakdown then, the first thing.
Yeah. And, there are some times where I felt like it wasn't as super clear cut. And I just, I wouldn't spend 20 minutes breaking down one clip. I would either split the points if I felt it needed to, or it was just kind of a defensive philosophy. And the thing is, it's all information. The point of it, and what's important from my perspective, was it's just important to just really, really important to know what your head coach wants and know what information he's looking for. And the more you get to know as an assistant, the more you get to know what he's looking for and where he would feel the breakdown is, kind of apply his philosophy and his mentality towards that as well.
Love it. If anybody else has any questions, please feel free to jump in. If not, Matt, I'm going to ask you to unshare, and I'm going to share some film.
Yeah, definitely.
And just kind of ask you your perspective on some of the things that I pulled up. I got about 19 clips, I think.
Perfect.
Here's my video panel. Give me 1 second.
I'm hoping we're skipping maybe the first 2 minutes of the game, because it's not pretty. It's an ugly. Definitely looks like the second day of a tournament when you start this game, for sure.
We are not entirely skipping it. There's a question or two.
Okay.
But are we good with that, or do you need me to full screen?
I think I'm good. I watched this yesterday as well, so I have an idea.
Awesome. I just I lose my notes when I go full screen. So let me put you guys over there and go this way. Okay, so this one was, I think you've kind of answered it a little bit, but transition threes, yay or nay from you guys, shot perspective, or personnel based, or how do you earn the green light? What's sort of your philosophy?
Entirely personnel. So Davian was 40% 3-point shooter. Like I mentioned earlier, he was.
No man.
Yeah.
Were you in the bathroom?
He was number 7 in the country in catch and shoot.
For the tags?
I can't even see who it is. Hang on. Let me mute somebody here. There we go. Sorry.
You're
go
good.
ahead.
Yeah. So we don't. It drives in theory. It drives Coach Roman crazy. Like, he is not a big transition 3 guy. That being said, he wants to let guys play free, and Davian coming back as a second-year player. He was the leading scorer on the previous team, and was a big reason why they made the playoffs the year before I got there. That's he has a little bit of a longer leash than somebody else, but Davian had also gotten pulled from a very important conference game for jacking up 3 transition threes before the first media. So,
right.
I think there's a leash, and it's kind of give and take, but
you guys do anything like charting and practices, or like a shooting ladder, or something that allows you like a longer leash, so to speak, or is it really subjective and performance based?
It's kind of performance based. A philosophy that I like to use personally from Seattle U was that Hayford uses a lot, is the how you play is dictated by the number next to your name and what you're allowed to do. So, Davian, again, 40% 3-point shooter. Again, has a much, and you'll see he makes a lot of those shots. So if you just tell him, no, don't shoot transition threes, stay in this box, you don't get the shots that he makes later in the game. So,
right.
So that's something that a concept that I still struggle with. I'm sure you'll see me. I'm trying to be a little less demonstrative this next year, but you'll see me on the bench a lot, like kind of lean back in my chair, and when guys that it may not be our best look to shoot a transition 3, pull those, but
got a couple defensive clips throughout the game. I think this one was just a question on who is your help. Take a look at the clip. Tell me what you see. It's early in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you can really see it super well, but there's a little bit of a cross screen action underneath there.
Yeah. So Davian, it's Davian. It needs to be so. As even with personnel, even with Phillips being a knockdown shooter, Davian number 3 right underneath the shot clock.
Yep.
Needs to be right on that midline, right underneath the basket. So you can tell because he's kind of on the opposite block right there.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have enough time to slide over. So right, Jalen is just watching his man. He's not seeing the ball. Keandre, kind of the same thing, but again, they're kind of going through some off-screen action. That's really where Davian, being 2 passes away, needs to be right in the middle of the paint so that he can slide over outside of the paint, and try and make that a tough 2, try and make that a low percentage shot instead of a shot right at the rim.
So for anybody watching, that's this gentleman there needs to be right over on the rim line. Is
Yep.
keep your MIG, so to speak, or your low man, right?
Is that the guy guarding the cutter?
What did you say, Kendall?
Is it
No, he's guarding number 22 in the corner right there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And again, that's kind of the balance of what, like, if you were to score that, right? I'm sure Davian's thought is, well, he's their leading scorer. He's a great shooter. I don't know if I should leave him. What if they kick it to him for a 3? And one of our Coach Rollman's favorite things to say in that situation is what scores. It's the ball, right? So, we need to stop. We would if we had to choose between a catch and shoot 3 and a layup, we'd have to give up the catch and shoot 3, because a layup is, this is the one of if not the highest percentage shots in the game. So
the interesting thing about that, and I'll get to it when we get to the clips, is the Iverson series that they run and the cut, the fill in behind cut that comes out of it. So let's keep that in mind for when we get there. I got one about nail help, and this is there's some action on one side. We get to a pick and roll on the other side of the floor, if I'm not mistaken. And I think you guys are in a drop. Might have been an ice.
Yep.
But your nail is super committed. Like he's right all the way over. What sort of is your concept? Like, are you guys a dig team? Are you a stunt?
So so we're not necessarily a dig team. For our defense, Davian is what we call belly to the ball. So he's looking at the basket, or just both eyes, both shoulders square to the ball. And our defensive concept, he needs to have his ball foot high. He needs to have his hand in the passing lane to make this a long, loopy pass, right? We don't dig from one pass away. We don't go for that steal. We want to plug the gap with our bodies, make that a tough, dribble, kind of snake dribble around through that, kind of through traffic, or make a long loopy pass that gives Davian time to close out. See, as Davian goes belly to the ball and reaches and kind of gambles on the pass, you see he has a really long closeout, and obviously out of control, ends up, 24, throws his legs out and flops.
He absolutely does. That's a Reggie Miller kick.
Yeah.
I wasn't even going to get into it, but he definitely throws a leg out and flops.
Yeah. But to be fair, Davian got about 10 of those over the course of the year. So a little apropos that it's on him. But
so for your nail defender who is belly to the ball, who's trying to influence the pass to make it loopy, what is an ideal closeout for that player? Or do you ever teach Xing from a different position? Like, what sort of is your principle on this closeout here?
We want to close out. We want to close out on that top hip with high hands, right? Make them shoot a contested 3 over the top, or dribble to the sideline from there. So, right, something we rep out every single day is our closeouts, our closeout angles, and that first step defense on that pass. Because again, people want to get into the paint. People want to get into the middle. It's no secret. It's just basketball, right? So we're able to stop. We want to be able to stop drives with help defense, force the long pass, and be able to close out and keep teams on that side of the floor if we can.
Interesting.
I have a question
next one. Sorry, Kendall, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask. I can't remember if there was anybody on that weak side wing. I was gonna see if there was supposed to be a stunt by anybody, since he's helping all the way on the opposite side of the floor. Is there supposed to be a stunt by this guy, kind of on the block here?
Number 0. This guy right here.
Yeah, talking right here, and you're talking about
No,
stunts.
not necessarily. Davian's kind of not necessarily overcommitting, but it's Davian's job to, again, 25 is not on our scout. Someone I do remember we talked about the next day, because he hit 3 threes the night before. That as a shooter, just make him put it on the deck. Jalen needs to be sprinting. Jalen's man, I believe, is hiding behind coach and the referee in the corner. He needs to be sprinting into deny in that corner. So
Gotcha.
in an emergency standpoint, yeah, he needs to take the ball. But because Davian can get there, Jalen needs to be in that passing lane denying the corner.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Next one, I was just wondering if this set makes your scout and what your philosophy was on, like, there's a ton of pin downs. I think there's actually 1 or 2 cross in here as well. You know, the overall action, how did you want to defend it, and how did you guys do, in your opinion? With not being married to the result.
Yeah. So we, and I think we did a pretty good job for the most part. The concepts of staggers and pin downs, whether that set in particular we didn't scout, but we went through in our walkthrough. We went through the stagger action, the kind of screen the screener. It's not. I don't think it's quite a flex, but flex-ish with. But we repped a ton of, like, what we call caboosing or trailing shooters off of down screens. So, you know, as you can see, you know, we want to stay attached to guys as they come off down, you know, those pin downs or those down screens all the way through. You know, especially in this first half, I thought we did a really good job of that. But no, so that particular play didn't make our scout, but we still went through those 2, and I think the Iverson set, and then we just went through some more concepts. How do we guard a cross screen? How do we guard a down screen? Things like that.
So I'll pull up their baseline out of bounds, and then I'll move to the Iverson series, just because you're talking about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, other than the fact that your guy gets draped on the screen, how did you want to defend it? What would you correct? What would you implement as change?
One more time. So, I believe that's. So sorry, one more time.
No problem. So
that's just no communication there through Dre and Malik, and obviously, I believe it's Dre's guy that ends up going out and gets screened, and it's a good action for sure. It's tricky, but where we need to be, where Dre needs to be, is Dre needs to be attached to number 4. So our 35, the guy who gets screened, needs to be, he needs to be attached right here, in my opinion. I think Malik could give him some space the way we would do that, and he needs to be attached and make sure that, because this guy is more of a threat to do what he just did, right? We can't give him that space and just assume, oh, he's setting a screen, you know.
Okay, so the Iverson series, there's 2 clips of it. You know, call it Luke, call it Ivo, whatever you want to say.
Yep.
They make their cuts. I was actually a little bit less concerned about the action itself and more interested in this cut that's happening. So they actually continue their loop, set an away screen, but because your big scorer is caught in help, similar to what we were talking about before, this fill behind is an interesting one to be open. did you guys notice it in game? How would you play it differently, or would you keep it the same and sort of live with the result? And I mean, I've got one more
We did.
clip that's ultimately the same thing, but I think that first one is the better one. You can see.
Yeah. So if you watch it, it's supposed to be it's a triple screen almost, or it's always it's at least a stagger, or it's supposed to be a stagger,
Right.
but it ends up being 1, 2, 3 guy. You're running Phillips off 3 screens, 3 pin downs.
Right.
So it's a hard action to guard, especially with a guy that can make shots like Phillips. But what Davian is doing, if you rewind it like 3 seconds, right as he starts to go, Davian's not in a stance. He's ball watching. His ball foot is low. He's belly to the ball, so he can't see his man sprinting up. So
Right.
that's a personnel clip. It's a concept clip because that hits 3 big major concepts for us, right? But it's for him, it's not like he's an incredible help over communicating, hands up on, underneath the basket doing what he needs to do. He's just kind of standing there watching the ball, falls asleep. Yeah, that's going to happen. He's going to do that every time if he gets that clean of a look and you run him off 3 screens.
So what I like about this, and what I'm curious about it is on this penetration right about here, who then becomes your low man, your help guy, your most important guy, whatever you want to call him type deal? Because I think that it's probably the guy who's guarding the person who's filling behind. So how does he do both, so to speak? Like, it's a really good action, and it's a loaded question. Don't get me wrong, Mayberg. It's just when I was watching, I was like, I've never continued to cut that guy in an Iverson series, and I think that I will now, because how do you defend that?
Right. So it's really hard. So what I would say is where Davian should be is right underneath the basket, right?
Right. So right about now, he should be on the rim line. He's your help.
Yep. So what he can do there, come up. He doesn't need to necessarily trail, because it's a long way to it doesn't make sense to trail 3 screens and loop all the way back around.
Right.
He needs to shoot that second, between that second and third screen, right up that line.
Right.
And number 35, who's guarding the second screener, should be on the DA line, should be on the midline anyway.
Interesting. I like it. We'll go some offensive stuff real quick. We're right at the hour mark. You told me give me an hour. I don't like. Are you good on time for a few more clips? There's.
I got nowhere to be.
Awesome, love it. I was just gonna ask you, and I think I know the answer is yes, but like, did you implement some of your dribble drive stuff from Seattle U? And
yeah,
is that what I'm looking at basically there?
Yes. Yeah. This is conceptually what we do. It's I'm not gonna share all of our secrets,
right,
but it's no secret that any good motion offense dribble drive you're gonna want to try. You're gonna want to try and get to the paint, create for drive and kick, create for the big in that dunker spot, and that's something that we were able to take a ton of. We were super successful with.
Awesome.
In this game again in man. So Davian, Jalen Reed right there, who's he was a 6'4" guard from California, who's just freak athlete. Both great for us off the bounce. And Zach Phillips got hurt for a while, missed about 8 to 10 minutes of this game, a little banged up, and we were able to really take advantage of that too. But this, I had just a couple notes, like, some of our keys are always pretty simple. They're similar kind of game to game, and we don't really want to change our identity a ton. We want to stay within who we are. But just being aggressive and making the extra pass. And that's something that I thought we did a really, really good job of. And even though, especially in the first half, we had some catch and shoot threes that didn't fall. We were able to get into the paint, and that's something that's really important for us is get paint touches, drive and kick. You know, Malik did a phenomenal job in what we call the bucket spot right there. He's at Adams State now, starting there, and you know he's not ever going to blow you away with his athleticism, but he just works so hard, just strong, big, strong kid, and you know does everything the right way, and you know it's easy. He was a 9. I think he was a 9-7 guy his freshman year, and he was 16-10 last year.
Nice.
So huge increase, just putting him in that spot, just letting him go up. So
we were talking about this a little bit, but like when I watched this clip, and I'll let it run in a second, I actually had real trouble. Like, what are they playing? Basically, it's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
And what are their rules? What are their concepts? So my question really was, how did you scout something like this when, you know, Synergy says like they're pretty much entirely man, but like they're not type deal? Like, so how do you plan against it? I'll run it again.
That's a great question, man. I mean, I've watched I watched this yesterday, and I was trying to see like what points they switch zone and what points they switch man. I remember seeing this clip. I had no idea what this is or what the concepts are necessarily, but you know, I mean, we had a couple zone offensive looks and plays and sets, and you know, I think where we struggled in this game with that is that we didn't rep any of those out in pregame in the walkthrough. We just assumed that they were going to stay man. And
who is he guarding? Who is I don't know. Are they fronting and lobbing, but they're fronting from the right side? And then
I guess 10 is going to take Davian, and their big is fronting Malik and they had Zach over the top help. But gosh,
I couldn't understand it at certain points, like what the rules were and where they were coming from.
Right.
I was just wondering, what do you do in your scout? Like, what goes in, or do you just, like you said, we have some zone plays, and that's what we're gonna do. Get to open spaces and look for angles type deal.
Yeah, that was kind of just stay within our zone offense concepts. I mean, at that point, the scout was kind of out the window since we just prepared for man. So kind of that chess match. And, you know, we did a good job of still getting to the paint in the first half against the zone. We did not do that at all in the second half. And that's how they were able to get back into the game and take the lead and, you know, kind of stay with us. I might be jumping ahead of myself, but they end up going, I couldn't believe it. Last play of the game, they'd been zone and had been working. Davian had been hitting tough shots, but really no rhythm, continuity in our offense when they were zone, and they went man to finish the game, and we had a game-winning 3.
Yeah.
I still am always a little perplexed why what went into the decision on their end. But I mean, I guess if you don't want to leave it to chance, but I don't know.
I'll skip ahead. I got one baseline out of bounds for you guys that I like. I'm wondering what the other options are, and then we'll talk about that end of game scenario, just like you were saying right there. So
yeah,
you know, this is just a simple one, attack throwback. But what are your other options out of this? What do you?
So then it's without, you know, maybe we clip this, but again, you know, we run it a lot, but it's normally a flex play where the big pops out, the Davian throws it over the top, and then we just run a little flex action for Davian. And Davian is phenomenal, was unbelievable in that coming off a down screen or a pin down in that action. So he just read it really well. And we call that cut where you follow your pass to the corner or refill. So that's just a kind of one of our base. That's not a set play for us at all.
That's just a read, basically.
That's just a read. Yeah. So that's just something we call a refill cut. And again, that's where Davian and Nate in particular were 2 of the highest IQ players, in my opinion, players in the NWAC. Nate and, both of them were unbelievably smart players, had an incredible feel for the game. So they were, that was just a read.
Awesome. So
I'd like to say I drew it up.
nice.
And I'll take credit for it, but
so I mean, a little background, the game's really close. And from the 6 minute to about the 3 minute mark, for anybody who goes and watches this game, it's like it's your two best players going at each other, right? So their guy with the ponytail and the blue shoes is hitting big shots. Your guy that you mentioned a bunch of times hitting big shots, 3-point, 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 3-point back. And like they're hard shots, late in shot clock, contested, they're going, game's getting really exciting. So they come down and they hit a three, and then you guys call the timeout and you're down two, there's 22 seconds left. You go into this huddle. What are you guys talking about? What are you looking for? And then the big question to me is, do you talk about like time and score and fouls? And do you talk about what you're doing after you're going to hit the shot or not hit the shot, what you're going to do? Like how much information are you giving them?
Yeah. So I only have the 2 play call options that we had in my notes, but I remember, he drew up both of if their zone, we're doing this, and drew it up. If their man, we're doing this. And then, I think he's a little superstitious, and I agree with this as well. It's not if we miss, we do this. It's when we make it, we do this.
Right.
When we make the shot. So the interesting thing about it is we didn't run either of the 2 plays. We were like 99% sure they were going to stay in zone. They went man here. So we went for, it ended up, and I think it, it took us a second to kind of realize what we observed, did a little action. I like to say that that's the way we drew it up. It was not that way at all. But in practice, the pistol act, we run a little pistol action. You'll see in the second part of it. So we look for Jalen to kind of have the slot ball screen. We don't get it. We go right into this pistol action, which these 2 guys, Jalen and Davian, love. And what sets up this play is the roll, 110%.
Yeah,
and that's where
it's out of there for sure.
And again, context super important. Davian has 30 at this point. Malik has, let me see, what did Malik have? Malik, I believe, had
I can pull it up for you.
He had 10. He had 10 points, but it was a loud 10, if that makes sense, in my opinion. Like it was easy bucket spot bucket, just.
Yeah, he's 4 or 5 from the field, right?
Yeah, and it was a lot. It felt, in my opinion, it felt like he had more than 10 for sure. So, and again, that comes down to a lot. We like to give our guys a lot of freedom. We didn't necessarily call that action out of the catch and shoot, or after that wing or that slot ball screen. But that's just kind of something that we play enough when we get into it. Davian and Jalen love that dribble handoff with Malik. So really good job setting up our cut. Davian, by just showing the ball, makes Howe come out on him, uses the ball screen really. It's so subtle, but as we were teaching our guys in a little training camp we had over the over the fall, it's just like, it's crazy how important it is. Use the screen and roll hard. Like it's just middle school, elementary school concepts, but it's what sets up this play. Jalen is wide open for this 3. And it's just because he comes off shoulder to, creates contact with the screener, and Malik rolls super hard to the rim. So then I'm also pretty hyped in there if you.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
I mean, who wouldn't be? That's a massive shot. But then, like I was asking in that,
yeah.
have you given them direction for this defensive play? What are you?
Yeah, so
You don't want to foul.
this was, yeah, you definitely don't want to foul. This was a scary look because we leave our feet 2 or 3 times going into it, right? So we don't. What we wanted to do was pressure the ball. And that's a great. that's a scary look. That gives me a lot of anxiety watching it. It's a pretty clean look for a guy that has hit 4 threes in the half.
Yeah,
He's hit harder shots, previously in this game. But so, yeah, that's something that, on a make there, and we do situations every day in practice that we don't want to let them roll the ball up like they did and get that extra 2 seconds. We want to pressure the ball, stay in front, high hands. And there's another one later in the year where it was super similar to that, where they had a chance to win on a long 3 like that. And super important that we put pressure on it. Try not to let them get a clear look at the rim.
I love it. You escape with it.
That's the best. That is the best way to put it, for sure.
Yeah. But it's a great game overall. If anybody wants to check out some good basketball, I highly recommend go back, take a look at it. Like with any game, there's some points in it that are real highs that comes down to it. And the 3-point shooting in that second half from that 6-minute mark to like that 3-minute mark, it's just like, wow, he's really gonna all right.
Yeah. It's high level. It's high level shooting for a level that may not I don't want to say be known for it, but there's definitely some highs and lows. A handful of chippies missed, but there's some incredible shooting between. Davian is now at Providence College in Montana, and he's going to be spectacular there. He's a phenomenal shooter.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I say this all the time, like level matters, but it doesn't matter, right? There's good basketball that happens everywhere, and there's bad basketball that happens everywhere. And I would never thumb my nose at level, period, because I can always learn from great people all over the place. So happy to have watched this game, and thank you, sir, for spending some time sitting down with me. If you want to, after we wrap it up, if you want to sit around and talk a little bit, sometimes coaches like to hang out, and certain questions they don't like to ask on camera sometimes get asked afterwards. But I just want to take a second, and same way that I shut down every show, I'll say, big thank you to the Rising Coaches Network, putting me in touch with other people who are willing to share the game. And, a huge thanks to you, sir. I look forward to many more sessions that we sit around and shoot the breeze about basketball. But, it's always, you got a fan up here in Canada. Somebody's watching your games and saying good luck to you for sure. But thanks for taking the time, man.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. This is a lot of fun. I've learned a ton watching from other guys, and I'm glad that, I can, give back a little bit as well, because I've taken a ton from everybody that's been on here already. And this is incredible. All the stuff that you do, Menelik, is awesome. And these are tough times for everybody, and it keeps you engaged, gives me something to look forward to for sure. So I really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for saying that. And on that note, we got a real special edition next week. So I've got Mr. Unmasked himself. He's sitting on the call listening in. But Lamar Barrett, who's, he's big time. It's the only way to discuss it. He does a show that, I aspire my show to have the level of credibility that his does, where he talks about the ins and outs of college basketball and what it's really like to be a coach. And if you are a person who likes something similar to what I do, I highly recommend you go and check it out. But he's going to sit down with us next week and talk about scouting and what it's like at the level that he's at and what goes into it. So I really look forward to that one. And then we got, if I'm not mistaken, we got Doug Caputo doing the New Year's Day one. So, a couple good ones coming up. Look forward to the time. Thanks again, Mr. Mayberg. And that's it. Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed Run It Back this week.